I'm Hannah, this is Sweet Fern Homestead. Today we are going to talk about hugelkultur. Not your classic hugelkultur where you're building beds in the ground, but a really cheap, inexpensive way to help you fill grow bags and planters, especially if you're growing things like herbs, potatoes, even flowers you could do this with, but this is a great way to be able to grow your food in small spaces using things like grow bags without going to the store and spending an incredible amount of money on soil. So let's say a bag of soil, I think the last time I bought a potting mix, it was, what was it? It was like, I want to say $12 at the store. Now I have a good 20 grow bags. If I'm going to spend $12 for each bag of dirt, I might as well go buy my vegetables at the market. It would not be cost effective. So if I create these layers using things that I have for free around the yard, and I can get my grow bags half full, sometimes even quarter full. The mountain mint, I'm gonna do about 3/4 full and then put a very thin layer of dirt compost on top. And then as it starts to work down, because it'll settle down, you'll have to add more to it. As it settles down and the roots start to grow with the mint and the shoots start to grow up, I will continue to layer it and layer it and layer it. All right, so let me show you what I do. So this is a beautiful planter from Lowe's, and inside of it, I have lined it with a grow bag that had a hole in it. You can probably see the hole down there. And I'm just using this as extra protection so the mint doesn't want to creep out too badly. And then I have cardboard that actually came in the planter when I bought it. A bunch of sticks, and then some old leaves. This is leaves and grass clippings that have been rotting since last summer. And then I'm actually gonna put in some of these logs that have been burned on the fire. So they're still, substantial, but that'll help as well. And then on top of that, I'm gonna put compost, and then I will plant the mint. Let's see, where's the mint? And you can use a mixture of native soil and compost. You don't need to use compost. You can also use soil from the garden store if you need to. If you need to buy a bag of that, go for it. This is the mountain mint from the winter sowing, and it looks pretty good. For as many seeds as I put in there, there's not a ton, but I have never successfully grown mint before, so I'm pretty happy with this. And I think it'll spread really nicely. So this is our little mini hugelkultur. I'm gonna fill it up, and then I'll get the mint planted, water it really well, and then I'm probably gonna put a layer of straw on top to help hold the moisture so I don't have to water too terribly often because it has not been raining here. And the idea here would be to use what you have. So I went over to our pile over there where we collect things to use for purposes of mulching, creating beds. Dave's really good about putting things over there that he's clipped or cut. It's in addition to our compost, so we can certainly add some of this to our compost, but like the leaves and the grass cuttings are really good for mulching beds, so I keep those separate. And then the sticks, we just have sticks because we have trees. And then cardboard, you really want to get that cardboard in there. I find cardboard is like the key to creating a really good environment. And so what we're going to want to do is make sure you get some worms in there. That's another piece of it. When you're doing a planter, if you're noticing that what you've put in there does not have any worms, try to go find some. I can just dig them up, or I have a pile of rotting composting wood chips, and it's filled with worms. So if I even just put a scoop of that in here, I'll automatically have worms in my hugelkultur bed because they won't be able, it's in a pot. So I'm gonna get this whole little system working, and the cost of it will be like nominal. We did pay for the compost, but other than that, we didn't pay for it. If I had to buy some soil at the dirt, there'd be the cost of that too, and then obviously the planter. If you are growing in planters and you don't have access to native soil or grass clippings or leaves or sticks, ask around and see if somebody would give you some from their yard. Or you can access, when people put out lawn waste, if you know that you trust that lawn waste, if you know it's somebody who's not using Roundup or anything like that, you can ask if you could have their bags of leaves. You could ask them if you could every now and then come get some grass clippings from them. This is a really wonderful way to reuse when someone else isn't using those themselves. Just be very careful if you're trying to grow organically, that you know that they're not using chemicals on their lawn. Okay, and then on top of that will be the dirt, whatever kind of dirt you want to use. Okay, so here's a great example of all three things. So this is native soil. You can see there's nothing that great about it. It's from a place that's like filled with roots and stuff like that. So Dave dug that up for me. The next thing is these leaves, just like we did over in the wooden barrel. So these are going to have either potatoes, or these are going to have Jerusalem artichokes in them, some of the smaller bags. And then you can see here, this has already been done with all three things. So it has the native soil, it has the leaves, which you can kind of see. It has the native soil, it has the leaves, and then I planted potatoes. So we've got that on top there. And then what I will do, just for some added protection against drying out, we'll get a layer of straw in here. I don't want to go too thick until it starts to grow in, and then I'll keep continuing to add over time. This is just to help right now with retaining moisture. And then the next layers that I add on to these potatoes will be actually to keep them from turning green. So to keep the sunlight off of them. So that is my little setup. So if I have whatever this is, 30 grow bags, if I was trying to fill these up with bagged soil from the store, I might as well be buying my own vegetables from the market and not growing my own. I mean, it just isn't going to make sense. The cost is not going to make sense over time. So if I didn't have my own native soil, I would literally put my grow bags in the back of my car with the seats down. I would drive to someone's house who had dirt for me to dig up and leaves for me to take, and I would do that. And then I would just deal with how heavy they would get. I wouldn't water them, bring them back to my yard. That's what I would do. And so even if I bought, let's say, 2 big bags of potting soil and put it on the very tippy tops of all of these grow bags, that would be like $20 versus hundreds of dollars. So I'd be more than willing to do that for like a top layer. And I may not. So it's really helpful not to just assume that there's only one way to do things, and also not to follow one prescribed method, because like Hugelkultur is incredible, but it's, they talk about doing it where you're building in the ground, but the concept of it, the practice of it, is such a great thing to translate to other spaces. I also have this verbena that I sowed on February 26th into a winter sowing jug, and it desperately needs to get planted. I'm gonna go ahead and put this around the planter with the mint, because I think it's gonna take a while for the mint to take off, and I'd like to have something else there. All I did was dump out the mint right from the container, and I just planted that solid massive mint into the center. So when I do this one, I'm going to take these little individual plants and put them all around the edges of the planter. You wouldn't even know right now that there was a grow bag or any of those sticks or leaves inside of there. And then the mint is right in the center. If at some point the mint starts to go crazy and envelop the verbena, then obviously I'll take it out, I'll move it. But just to give this somewhere to be right now, because you can see I have a lot of winter sowing jugs and we're gonna need a lot of space. So I have a ton of flowers that have already been hardened off. Basically these are hardened off, but you do want them to be exposed to the direct sunlight for a few days. So what I do is I just open the lid for a little bit and then I close the lid, and then the next day I open it for a lot longer and then I close it, and I don't do that for long because these have basically grown outside. So here's what it looks like when they come out. Most of the things by now have a pretty solid root system. This is better than anything I can grow indoors without grow lights. So winter sowing has worked incredibly well. So as I said, I just put this mint down as the entire section from the winter sowing jug, and I'm just gonna let it start to spread. This is gonna need some serious water because for being in New England, we have had no rain, which is so bizarre, you guys. So I'm just gonna pull these apart with my hands and just tease them apart. And it just, you know, you gotta just work at it. They'll come. It's okay if you have two together, it's no big deal. But then I'm just gonna tuck these all around the edges of the pot. I'll find a picture of what these are for you. And then all that's left now is just to water everything in. So remember, this is not like necessarily where these will all stay, but it gives them a chance to grow up before I know where exactly they're gonna go. So instead of potting these up into more containers, I'm just using bare soil. So I like to do this in garden beds and any of the rows, any place I have bare soil that doesn't yet have the plant that's gonna go, that's gonna grow up around it. I get things started this way because you can move things. Nothing is permanent other than carrots and potatoes and beets. I wouldn't move any of the root vegetables or, but you know what I mean. You can easily, I'm pulling grass for the chicken as I talk. You can easily move things around and change your mind, but thanks for being here. I hope that this was helpful to you. This has been incredibly helpful for me in being able to extend my garden space and grow a massive amount of food using these grow bags without having to spend a ton of money. So thanks for being here. Appreciate you.